Hello everybody, Comrade Murray here. Today I'm going to be making a video about the Spanish Communist Movement, and it's going to be a general overview from start to modern times. So let's get right into it. The Spanish Communist Movement has been marked with intense class struggle since the very beginning. Even Karl Marx commented on the intense class contradictions at play in Spain. A very striking feature of the Spanish Communist Movement is the distinct ideological and geographical split into two different camps. The Marxists, who concentrated themselves in Castile, Asturias, and the Basque Country, and the anarchists, most famously known for their anarchist experiment in Catalonia. The anarchists and the Marxists worked with each other many times throughout the history of the movement, and most notably that was during the Civil War. This is often pointed to as a moment in history by proponents of quote-unquote left unity as a time when left unity was needed the most. And they say the reason why the Civil War was lost was because the unity was broken. But in fact, this is not the case. This is ignoring the intense internal contradictions that were at play. To fully understand the context of the Spanish Communist Movement, we have to first look at the various bourgeois revolutions and bourgeois democratic developments that took place in Spain in the 1820s to the 1870s. The Treno Liberal, which ended in defeat and the re-establishment of the feudal aristocracy, was the first instance of a bourgeois revolution in Spain. This took place in 1820. Over time, though, the slow weakening of the aristocracy set in as the Carlist Wars dragged on. Queen Maria Cristina was eventually forced in 1837 to accept a constitution which drastically increased the powers of the parliament. From 1868 to 1873, we would see the coup of Queen Isabella II and the establishment of the short-lived First Spanish Republic. The first labor unions appeared in the late 1860s. Giuseppe Finelli was sent to Spain to spread the ideas of the First International. He was a follower of Mikhail Bakunin, so this explains the heavy anarchist presence in Spain that continues to modern times. Soon after, Marx's son-in-law, Paul Lafargue, arrived and made Marxism widely known. 1879 saw the formation of the Spanish Socialist Party, followed by the Union of Workers, UGT, in 1888. The fractured nature of the Spanish workers' movement proved itself to be a challenge not only early on but later as well, particularly during the Civil War. Engels focused his attention on the involvement of the Spanish Bakuninists in the abortive cantonal revolts from July to September, organized in the south and southeast of the country by the Intransigents, an extremist Republican grouping that advocated the partition of Spain into independent cantons. The revolt weakened the Republican camp and forced Pi and Margall to resign on July 18, 1873, and thus paved the way for the establishment of the military dictatorship in Spain early in 1874, and then for the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy. In September 1923, Miguel Primo de Rivera staged a fascist coup in a similar fashion of Mussolini's March on Rome or Hitler's failed Munich Putsch. Rivera was able to win favor of King Alfonso. He was appointed prime minister and largely undermined the bourgeois democratic institutions that had previously undermined the king's power. Rivera resigned in 1930 after losing the favor of the king and the military. The workers of Spain racked with poverty, and the Spanish monarchy, having lost its fascist strongman, faced the threat of popular unrest and collapsed again in 1931, and a workers' republic proclaimed in its place. In response, capitalists, fascists, Carlists, the Catholic Church, and various forces of reaction would respond in 1936 under the leadership of Francisco Franco by launching the fascist uprising known as the Pronunciamiento. The Constitution of the Republic established in 1931 would extend suffrage to women and severely weaken the authority of the Catholic Church. Pope Pius condemned the Spanish government for its supposed deprivation of Catholic civil liberties. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church would continue to support the fascists. The Constitution would also establish procedures for the collectivization of roads, housing, factories, and farmland. Niceto Alcala Zamora of the Progressive Republican Party won the 1931 elections and was succeeded by Manuel Zana in 1936, who led the coalition of left-wing parties known as the Popular Front. Unfortunately, due to the rampant factionalism within the government, they could not adequately deal with the counter-revolutionary threat posed by the fascists, who routinely engaged with skirmishes with the workers. They also hindered the economic growth of the country. Economic growth throughout the Second Republic's short existence was stagnant, not only due to the worldwide economic depression, but factional disagreements once again can be blamed for the stagnant economy. In 1934, miners in Asturias would stage a major strike action which turned into a spontaneous uprising in response to the 1933 elections, wherein a conservative bloc won over the majority of the parliament, which shifted power from the leftists to the conservatives. Armed with dynamite, knives, and machine guns, the rebels declared a proletarian revolution and occupied the entire province with their local governments. The rebellion would be put down by the troops from Morocco, led by Francisco Franco. In July 1936, Francisco Franco, a veteran from the genocidal Morocco pacification campaigns, would launch an attack in the south of Spain with his army in Morocco. Due to the growing fascist threat in Spain, Joseph Stalin, along with the rest of the Comintern, had sought advisable for the Spanish Communist Party to ally with the other left-wing and anti-fascist parties, hence the formation of the Popular Front, which consisted mainly of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, the Spanish Communist Party, the Workers' Party of Marxist Unification, which split from the PCE as a result of the Russian Revolution, the Republican Left, and the Republican Union. The front was also supported by the Galician and Catalan nationalists, the UGT and the CNT-FAIE. The only party which upheld Marxism-Leninism was the PCE, but due to the dire situation, the Comintern felt it necessary that such a broad alliance be formed. The PCE, headed by Jose Diaz and Dolores Ibarruri, worked consistently for the Republican government and the Popular Front. After the Republic's defeat, however, the PCE, along with several thousand Spaniards, would flee to the USSR to avoid being killed by the fascists. Many of the Spanish diaspora would return to Spain during Khrushchev's thaw. Conflict between the Trotskyites POUM and the PCE, which remained fiercely loyal to the Comintern and upheld the correct line of Marxism-Leninism, would arise. The Trotskyite POUM would even be accused of collaborating with the fascist forces, although these accusations would never be proven. An incident in 1937 known as the May Day incident would occur when Trotskyist and anarchist forces engaged in a street skirmish with the PCE and the United Socialist Party of Catalonia. The CNT-FAI would establish territorial control over Catalonia in 1936 until its collapse in 1939. Revolutionary Catalonia, as it would come to be known, was the second anarchist project in history, succeeding Makhno's Russia. As previously mentioned, they would have conflict with the PCE, who wished to centralize production and economic planning, as opposed to the decentralized worker control. The shortcomings and ultimate defeat of the Popular Front can most certainly be blamed on the internal contradictions which were not solved, that being the revisionism which was taking hold and the factionalism. Anti-fascist resistance in Spain would begin soon after the conclusion of the Civil War, with the primary organization being active early on was the Guerrilla Association of the Levante and Aragon, AGLA or AGLA. AGLA was organized and created by the PCE, but its ranks included anarchists and Marxist-Leninists alike. Many of these anarchists would be accused of collaborating with Franco's police. AGLA would carry out attacks to weaken the fascist state from 1946 to its dissolution in 1952. Many of their armed actions also included the assassination of Falangists, as well as fascist police, military, and politicians. The most well-known of the anti-fascist organizations to rise under Franco would be the ETA, otherwise known as Basque Fatherland and Liberty. They were founded in 1959 and would carry out armed actions against the Franco estate. Most notably would be their car bombing of Luis Carrero Blanco in 1973. Another less influential group around that time would be the 1st of October Anti-Fascist Resisting Group, GRAPO, also known as GRAPO. Following the tenets of Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, Grappo had ties to and was likely the armed wing of the PCER, Spanish then MLMZT party founded in 1975 due to the revisionism of the PCE. Grappo would carry out armed actions from 1975 to 2006 and responsible for many bomb and assassination attacks against the fascist state. In the first attack on October 1st, 1975, they killed 4 policemen in Madrid in response to killing of multiple members of ETA and another organization, FARP, being killed by the fascist state. Grappo and the PCER would not claim responsibility for these attacks until January of 1976, when at the same time they would carry out 60 bombings against fascist targets across the country. Similar in some ways to Grappo, and existing before it was the Revolutionary Anti-Fascist Patriotic Front, FARP or FRAP, was established in 1971 by the Spanish National Liberation Front, a group known as Vanguardia Socialista, and the then MLMZT Communist Party of Spain. From 1971 to 1975, FRAP would focus on publishing its newspaper, Acción, and organizing protests against the fascist state. It faced a major setback in 1972 when its Madrid printing press was raided, but would continue to organize protests and gain support throughout the following years. In May of 1973, they organized a protest in Madrid attended by 10,000 people. In 1975, FRAP would begin an armed campaign. Later in the year, 3 of their members, as well as ETA militants, would be executed by the state. Later avenged by Grappo, the last guerrillas of FRAP would be arrested, and the group would cease armed activity in 1978. The PCE in exile, with Dolores Ibarruri as its chair, the party eventually liquidated the revolutionary line. The PCE would strengthen ties with the Khrushchevite CPSU to create an organization for the few Spaniards still living in the USSR. The first anti-revisionists arose in 1963 as a response to the Sino-Soviet split and the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. The PCE no longer served proletarian interests, but rather petty bourgeois interests, which ultimately caused its liquidation as a Marxist-Leninist party. The PCE-ML split from the PCE and accused the PCE leadership of liquidating the party, betraying proletarian interests, and abandoning the armed struggle. The PCE-ML maintained a staunch pro-Albania stance all the way up to the Sino-Albanian split and rejection of the Three Worlds theory. PCE-ML renewed the armed struggle in 1971 alongside FELN and FARP, both anti-fascist resistance movements previously mentioned. The engagement was brief as they would renounce armed struggle in 1976, but the dissolution of the fascist state and transition to liberal democracy. 1979 would mark the first legally held Congress by the PCE-ML, and in 1992 would dissolve the party at their 6th Congress. The anti-revisionist development from 1975 onward is a complicated struggle. In 1968, the Organization of Spanish Marxist-Leninists would be established in exile, a split from the now revisionist Communist Party of Spain. OMLE was a Marxist-Leninist Mao Zedong thought organization. Later in 1975, OMLE would reorganize into the PCER, as well as establishing Grappo. PCER, alongside the armed campaign of Grappo, would establish several fronts, including ODEA, the Democratic Association of Anti-Fascist Students, and their program to help political prisoners, which is still active to this day. Over time, PCER would eventually abandon Mao Zedong thought and revert to Hoxhaism. The communist movement in Spain today is dominated by a revisionist hegemony. The PCE, PSOE, Podemos, and the Izquierda Unida all claim the title of leftist, yet still stand squarely in favor of the 1978 Bourbon Restorationist government. They deny the struggle of the oppressed nations within Spain, those being the Galicians and the Catalans. They call for a unity of Spain, even going so far as to deny the right of self-determination to Galicia and Catalonia by signing Article 155. The CNT, which after decades of being illegal operates today but only as an organization working for economistic gains, as opposed to revolutionary overthrow of the monarch-fascist regime. The Committee for Building the Maoist Communist Party of Galicia is a pre-party formation in Galicia, which aims to constitute the Communist Party of Galicia under the proletarian ideology of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. They have declared support for the Catalan national liberation struggle and carried out a revolutionary strike in 2017. Well, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any criticisms, please leave them in the comments or contact me on Discord, and I will be sure to listen to them. Other than that, thank you, and I will see you guys next time.